So here we are at the Construction Summit 2023 at the Building Research Enterprise Science Park. Fantastic day, loads of speeches going on. I've just sat through one which is posing a very provocative question: is net zero feasible in the construction sector? I've got two of the speakers with me here today, and I know they're desperate for a cup of coffee, but I thought I'd grab them before they went. Rafe, Bertram, you spoke first. Tell me a bit about the sort of highlights of what the core message was today for the audience here.
I think it is just about action. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk earlier about roadmaps, about long-term policies, about pushing the action onto others, and I think that's awful. I think it needs to be, people need to show, people like organisations like Tata need to show what they're doing. They need to show leadership by actual, not PDFs, but actual products that create that net zero journey. Yeah. And we're using that, and we think that there's in construction there's a huge amount of steel involved, and I'm particularly keen on getting that idea of the circular steel involved. It's really difficult for Tata, who is a steel producer, to get reused steel, repurposed steel, not just recycling, but repurposed steel, and trying to get a way of taking back the steel that they've made, producing a new brand of steel that is in standard components that can be used again and again. Please brand it. We thought of the idea of Tata back, maybe, or steel with a C for circular. That's cool. Yeah. Now, let's do that, yeah? And it's sort of, I kind of relate it to where the steel is compared to the fossil fuel industry, how we can learn from all of that and move forward and not get into the difficult area that the fossil fuel industry is in.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've learned today is this is a hugely complex topic, isn't it? Even just within construction. You talked a lot about embodied carbon in your presentation, and within the steel industry that's very important, and people say we could be a decarbonisation provider. If we can decarbonise steel, then it benefits the entire supply chain. But it's not just about embodied carbon, as you spoke about, and Gilles, I'm going to come on to you in a moment, because it's about the product in use, the reuse of products, and we're here on a site which has the seismic building next door, which is a project which is looking at reuse as well as recycle. But it's not just down to Tata Steel to make more recycled content steel, is it? It's the whole supply chain together.
Yeah, but you do what you do, yeah? You are, if you're producing the steel, by all means, push it to others, but actually you've got to make a stand, and you've got to look at your business model to see how you can change it, how you can get away from the new steel using, recycled content, obviously, but how do you, why I'm so interested in the embodied carbon and the repurposing of steel is because that's what the planet feels now, yeah? Operation and use, absolutely fantastic. We made huge strides to that, and that affects over the next 30, 60 years. But actually we're building buildings now. Those emissions are going into the atmosphere and warming the planet now. They're not warming the planet in 60 years' time. Yeah. They're warming them now. So it's that by all means talk about the holistic view of sustainability. I love all of that. But actually, what can each organization, what can each individual do now to prevent that carbon getting into the atmosphere?
Yeah, and there's a bigger debate to be had there, and maybe we'll invite you on the podcast to have that discussion, which we do. But Gilles, I want to come to you. Gilles Alvarenga, you have a holistic perspective on the construction industry. I was really taken when in your speech you said about not messing up is not enough. You can get to zero and you say, well, we're not making the planet any worse, but there's opportunities to improve the environment. That's pretty ambitious, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I think the message today here is just like we are still talking about if you are ready for net zero, when actually we should be, and we are talking about 2050. So that's when we should be talking about how can we make positive impact, not only stop to mess around with the environment. But I think another important point was like about of the communication within the industry as well, because I think one good point that Rafe made about the reuse of material, for example, and Tata steel, is that in order to reuse, we have, for example, to understand what are the basic components that the industry needs in order to reuse this material in other buildings. So I think Tata, as a steel manufacturer, if it starts understanding and inquiring for their clients what is the sort of standard they are using more and more, and then how we see this is still being reused in 10, 20, 30 years time, then we can start improving like the circularity in the materials. And then once we start doing that, the embodied carbon starts to be less of a problem. And then we're going to be able to be discussing things like biodiversity net gains, like toxins on all the materials that goes inside the buildings, all the sort of things that we are just, because we are just so concentrating on the carbon that we are not looking on the whole spectrum in the sustainability that's like health and well-being, not only ours but as the ecosystem as a whole.
Yeah, I was quite taken by that, about the impacts on society rather than just a specific aspect of it. I was also rather taken with your 6 Rs, and I know people have different models in terms of Rs and Es and all that sort of stuff, but your 6 Rs, it's very easy to get caught up into that. Recycling is great, so if we can do more recycling, that's the solution, but there's much more to it. There's a whole load of more options to that which are more beneficial.
Recycle is the very bottom of the 6 Rs, first of all, reject what you don't need, like chemicals and unnecessary components. That goes with like the reducing, that you can reduce, the more you reduce in terms of materials, that means less embodied carbon, that means better. But then on the reuse is where we should be like really working on, because like there's so many materials over there, and not only about materials, I'm talking about buildings as well. Like demolition should be like a dirt word, you kind of should be forbidden to do that. It's like, unless it's like the building is falling apart, you should reuse it, retrofit it. And then once you have done all of that, okay, then we can recycle it. But the things like what I see in the industry, like they are putting recycling and reusing in the same box. Like, oh, you're reusing and recycling 98% of our waste. Like, wait a second. Within this 98%, how much you're actually reusing and how much you're actually recycling? Because there's a big gap on the embodied carbon, these two differences, like reuse first, recycling just when you cannot reduce, reuse, or reclaim, then you recycle. That's the message I was trying to push.
Yeah, and it came across very, very strongly, and a very powerful message. I can't help wondering, it's a reflection of modern society, because if you go back only a couple of generations to the early 20th century, people didn't consume as much. There was a whole sort of a culture or way of doing things where people didn't use more than they had to. They didn't waste things. Maybe it was the war generation. Do you think that's construction and industry is a reflection of society as a whole, where we buy too much, we consume too much?
Yeah, I think we're on this disposable era but I think we are coming from a world that we thought we had unlimited resources. We are not suffering with pollution as we are now. We are not suffering from the consequence from the climate change as we are now. So like now it's like we desperately have to put this era at the back and start something new and learn from the past. How do we reuse? How do you repair? It's not like disposing everything. And that goes from components and equipments in your building, but down to the buildings itself and the seats itself and how we repurpose the things.
Listen, both of you, thanks very much for joining us. I know you're desperate to get a coffee, and I don't blame you. Your message is very powerful. It came across very strongly today. Power to your elbow. Keep telling the message. We're going to go and find some more people to talk to.